So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Saves Uzumaki Clan and Become Hokage. So let's start the series. A few miles away from Hyde Ninja Village, also known as the Leaf Village, a large army of samurais could be seen heading towards the village, walking on the main road without a worry in the world. Through the forest jumping from tree to tree was a large number of ninjas of Uzushio, armed to the teeth for a battle. They all bore the crest of the Whirlpool Nation and served the founding ninja clan of both the nation and the village that resided within it, the Uzumaki clan. They were a strong nation, equal to that of the 5 great countries and their villages. The clan were the cousins of the Hyuga clan, Senju clan and Uchiha clan since being founded by the first Uzumaki, Murugan, the son of Hamura Otsutsuki, the brother of the Rikudo Sannin. The samurai wore specially designed armor with Uzumaki seals, protecting them from almost all nin spirit art. The ninja with them were a special division of the Uzushio's Anbu, called the Kurokishi. In the center of the army was a carriage that carried none other than the Whirlpool daimyo Toshio Uzumaki and the former Nidaime Uzukage. He was a man in his early to mid-60s and thanks to his clan's longevity looked younger than he really was. He had a dark red beard that went down to his neck and gray/red hair that went down his neck and covered his ears and a little bit of his forehead and dark blue eyes. Walking alongside the carriage was a tall man, who was perhaps in his late 20s. He wore a long black coat that had long sleeves with red shoulder pads and arm bracers over it, and had a zanbato that was about a 150 centimeters long strapped to his back. His spiky red hair went down to the center of his back and his blue eyes were very intimidating. He was the oldest son of Toshio Uzumaki, Hysen Uzumaki also known as the Sorigami, Sky God, and the Yandaime Uzukage of Uzushio as well as the current head of the Uzumaki clan. The sword he wielded, that had a smooth black handle with yellow lines going over it as an X, was called the Koken, Yagarasu, Black Sword, Night Raven, one of the many tools forged by Murugan. Both men had a look of absolute anger on their faces. Then Toshio turned to look at his son. Hysen, take some of our men and go ahead of the army, inform the guards of our arrival. Hysen nodded and went ahead, with several ninjas following in pursuit. Toshio looked behind him at another carriage that was being carried as well. In there was a young woman, who appeared to be in her earlier 30s or so. She had long red hair that went down to her knees, deep blue eyes and smooth skin. She wore a blue kimono that had dark blue lines across it that looked like waves. The woman's eyes were hardened, set directly on Hyde Ninja Village with only one thought in mind, Naruto. Back in Hyde Ninja Village, the village remained unaware of the approaching force that was heading towards them. It had been 3 years since the Kyuubi's attack and the death of Minato Namikaze, the Yandaime headmaster, who gave his life to seal the demon into his newborn son Naruto. It had also been 3 years when Udamame Uzumaki, Minato's wife and Naruto's mother died as well. Naruto Hiruzen, reinstated Sandaime headmaster, thought to himself as he looked out the window of his office thinking that he should have been the one to have done the sealing. When word got out that Naruto was the new Jinchuriki, there were immediate calls for his death by many. And from some, the more militaristic kind, wanted to use him as a weapon. Hiruzen sighed as he wondered what Minato would be thinking now, how his son who should be treated like a hero, was instead treated like a plague. True, he himself had tried his best to take care of Naruto in honor of his successor since he knew that Naruto was not the Kyuubi. But with his duties as headmaster it was not so easy a task, especially when trying to keep the civilian council, Fugaku Uchiha and the elders away from Naruto. Suddenly a cat mask wearing Anbu appeared before Hiruzen's desk, bringing him out of his thoughts. The Anbu was a woman if the long purple hair gave any indication. Headmaster Sama, news from the Northern Guards, the Anbu reported. Getting serious, Hiruzen turned around with a hard look on his face. What has happened? He said with the voice of a hardened veteran. A small group, about 3 squads, of Yuza Anbu have appeared at the gate. They're being led by the Uzukage Hysen Uzumaki and demand an audience with you, the cat Anbu replied. Hiruzen paled at the name. He had met Hysen a long time ago, during the Third Shinobi World War when Hyde Ninja Village and Uzushio were doing a joint operation against a large force of IWA nins that were threatening to attack the Fire Country from the rear, a risky strategy but an unexpected one. It would have indeed caught Hyde Ninja Village off guard. However, when everyone was getting ready for a harsh battle, it was Hysen who took the IWA force all on his own. Hysen was a rarity, having been born with 3 natural core energy natures, water, wind and lightning in that order, but he had a high control with water release. He was also probably the second person in history who could control the water molecules in the air, second only to Tobirama Senju, the Nidaime headmaster. But his prowess with all 3 elements were high, so much that he could even control the weather, thus earning him the name Sorigami, Sky God. He took the position of Uzukage before Minato took the headmaster seat, and he proved his skills when he managed to defeat the Yellow Flash in a friendly spar, which Hiruzen bared witness to. Another concern was why were they coming here now? The Whirlpool country had cut all ties with Hyde Ninja Village since Nudamome's death 3 years ago. Perhaps they were finally coming for Naruto, since with Hysen as Uzukage and Nudamame dead, Naruto would be next in line for the throne as the Whirlpool Daimyo. However, that would bring up complications in Hyde Ninja Village. Danzo and his former teammates would want Naruto to remain in Hyde Ninja Village because of the Kyuubi, and in order to gain both the civilian and shinobi support, they would reveal Naruto's father. And with how loved Minato was, Hiruzen had a good idea that the people of Hyde Ninja Village would fight for the Yandame's son. But right now, the old headmaster had to deal with the current situation. Turning back to the ANBU, he said, "Are there any ANBU at the gate with them?" The cat ANBU nodded. "Hi, Headmaster Sama, Tenzo is there right now, trying to calm the guards and the Uzanines down." Hiruzen nodded. Tenzo, despite not really knowing anyone from Whirlpool, was a man who could keep them calm until the headmaster had more time to assess the situation. "Very well, I want you, Tenzo, and a squad of ANBU to escort them here ASAP. Understood?" The ANBU nodded and disappeared, leaving Hiruzen to his thoughts about the current situation. Finally, after a few minutes to think, he said to no one, "Dog!" Soon another ANBU, a male with silver hair and wearing a dog mask, appeared. The dog mask he wore hid his face, but you could tell he was a serious ninja. "Hi, Headmaster Sama?" Without stopping, Hiruzen said, "I want you to find Naruto Uzumaki and bring him to my clan compound for the time being, is that understood?" "Hi, Headmaster Sama," Dog said before disappearing as well. Hiruzen sighed as he leaned in his chair. "I'm getting too old for this crap." With Dog, aka 6th Headmaster Hataki. After leaving the Headmaster Mansion, 6th Headmaster dashed through the roofs of Hyde Ninja Village, searching for the blonde Jinchuriki. His first destination would be to head towards the orphanage that the boy stayed at, but he knew that the matron of the place would frequently throw Naruto out into the street, so chances of him being there were slim. Nonetheless, Itachi made a shadow clone to check the orphanage while he continued his search throughout the village. The best way, 6th Headmaster figured, was to look for any large crowds of people. Usually Naruto's presence caused people to become angry since they mistook him as the Kyuubi in human form, thus formed large mobs to chase him. So 6th Headmaster spent the last few minutes searching for any signs of suspicious activities when he suddenly saw several blurs passing by him, so fast that not even his implanted Sharingan could keep up with their movements. Still, he managed to figure out what direction they were heading towards and so followed them. After a minute or so, 6th Headmaster lost sight of them, and suddenly heard blades hitting flesh, followed up by the screams of people, which then turned to silence. He stopped his running to go and investigate when he once again saw the blurs leaving from the alleyway, heading straight towards the mansion. This time his Sharingan noticed that 2 of the blurs were carrying something or someone. They were both kids, no more than 3. One was a boy with blonde spiky hair with tan skin. The other was a girl with pale milky skin and blue hair shaped into a Harem style. 6th Headmaster soon recognized who they were. Shit, he thought to himself as he made off after them. Headmaster Mansion, Council Room. It didn't take that long for Hiruzen to send out word to the council, both shinobi, civilian and elders, to arrive for an emergency meeting, stating that lateness was not an option. The headmaster usually didn't mind if people weren't on time as long as they didn't dilly-dally. But if the headmaster said he had no time for lateness or tardiness, then everyone in the council knew it was serious, hence why they arrived to the council room quickly. Many of them were shocked to see the daimyo of Whirlpool along with his son and a woman whose face was covered by a veil. Several Uzu and Bu of its Kurokishi division had their arms behind their backs while guarding the daimyo and his son. Like all ANBU in any village, these ninjas wore masks to cover their faces, thus hiding their identity. However, these ANBU wore plain black masks with kanji symbols on them in red. Along with that, they wore light black chest armor, metal guards and leg guards. Underneath all that was dark blue clothing, including a hood and black gloves. Strapped to their backs were swords, mostly ninjato. Also strapped around their left sleeve was a symbol of Yuzushi Ogakure. And finally around their necks was a necklace with a black round circle with silver lines forming a swirl, a symbol of Yuzushio's founding clan, the Uzumaki clan. The Kurokishi division of Yuzushio ANBU specialized in seals for combat, and were feared greatly by many, especially those who have seen them fight with said seals either on their bodies or weapons. The way they stood behind the 3 people silently was unnerving even for the clan heads. But if you asked why the fire daimyo allowed his counterpart to bring such a large force with him into his country, until they saw the signed paper from the fire daimyo, granting Tashi to enter his lands for whatever reasons he had. Deciding to cut the tension that was growing in the air, Hiruzen made a noise with his throat to get everyone's attention. "Now before we start this meeting, I would like to welcome Tashi-sama, Hysen-sama and..." Hiruzen gestured to the woman sitting beside the daimyo. Tashi Uzumaki sent a silent glare towards the old headmaster, a glare capable of making the god of shinobi flinch a little. "This woman is the reason why we're here. That along with the fact we were apparently lied to about a certain event that happened 3 years ago." This made everyone look at each other, trying to figure out what happened 3 years ago. The only thing that came to mind was when the Kyuubi attacked, causing many deaths such as the Yondaime headmaster. Hiruzen was starting to wonder if they really did find out about Naruto. He, along with the clan heads and other top jonins, could practically sense the malice coming off the daimyo, his son, and the mysterious woman. I'm afraid I do not know what you're talking about. The moment he finished that sentence, 5 more Yuza and Bu appeared on the other side of the council table, kneeling before their kage and daimyo. The one at the front, a male by his voice, with the kanji of ghost, said, Tashiya-sama, Yuzukuji-sama, Uzumaki-sama, we found him. With the last part, the Anbu on his left stepped forward, revealing that he had something or someone in his arms, and that someone was Naruto-kun! The veiled woman shouted as she dashed forward, her mask falling off as she ran towards said blonde, who was currently unconscious, allowing everyone to see her fair skin, blue eyes, and long red hair. The face made everyone who recognized it gasp, for it was none other than Ndamam Uzumaki, wife of Minato Namikaze, daughter of Tashi Uzumaki, and to a few who knew, the mother of Naruto Uzumaki. A few of the clan heads performed a seal, muttering, Kai, to try and see if it was a gen spirit art, which it wasn't. However, the woman was blind to the rest of the world as she cradled her 3-year-old son close to her, crying with tears of joy of finally being reunited with him. Hiruzen was the first to regain his bearings when Dog appeared beside him. Forgive me, Headmaster-sama, but I wasn't able to move fast enough, he said before eyes widening behind his mask at the sight of Ndamam, his sensei's wife, alive and well. Noticing the shock on the Anbu's face, Hiruzen made a hand gesture, a sign for him to leave and that it was okay. Once Dog was gone, Hiruzen turned towards the daimyo, with a suspicious glare on his ancient face. Tashiya-sama, is there a reason why your daughter, who was reported to have been dead after the attack of the Kyuubi, is here right now? The only answer he got back was glares from the Uzumaki family, along with their Anbu, combined with a combination of killing intent that made many of the civilians pass out, a lot of the clan heads to shiver, and the Anbu who were hiding in the council room appeared, their lack of breathing making it hard for them to stay concealed. Naruto, who was still being held by his mother, began to whimper lightly at so much killing intent and subconsciously buried his head deeper into Ndamam's chest. Noticing this, Ndamam stopped glaring at the headmaster along with the others. She then realized that her son's face was covered in bruises with some healing, and his clothing had holes in them. Standing up straight and imposing, she said, Hiruzen, I'm taking my son to the hospital so his wounds can be treated. I'm sure my father and brother can fill you in with the details. After that we are taking him home, his true home. She said the "we are" with such strength that it left no room for doubt that she would use force to take her son out of the village. Hiruzen could only nod, not wanting to do anything that might invoke the wrath of the whirlpool and the fire daimyo. But before Ndamam could leave with some Anbu guards, the one designated ghost turned towards Hayashi. Hayashi Hyuga, I presume? Said man nodded. We feel like you should know that along with Naruto-sama, who was being beaten by a mob that we dealt with. A cold shiver went up all of the Hyde Ninja Village people's spines. We also discovered that a girl, that we have learned is your daughter, cute Ninja Hyuga, was also smacked to the side, earning a concussion, when she tried to help Naruto-sama. What? Hayashi roared in anger. Despite his strict and emotionless outer appearance, Hayashi cared deeply for his wife and daughters, and the mere thought that one of them was hurt so badly angered him, especially after the loss of his brother a few months ago due to an incident when Kumo tried to kidnap cute Ninja, thus causing Hizashi's death and his son, Niji, to hate the main branch. He looked at the headmaster. Headmaster-sama, I ask permission to inform my wife of what has happened to cute Ninja. Hiruzen nodded and everyone watched as Hayashi left the council room, soon followed by his 2 Hyuga bodyguards. Then Ndamam, along with half of the Yuza Anbu, carrying a still asleep Naruto, left soon after, leaving Tashiya and Hyson to deal with the council, not that they mind however. Now, Tashiya said as he sat back down, followed by his son. As Hiruzen asked, you're all probably wondering how my daughter is still alive. The clan heads nodded. I will tell you to the best of my abilities, since Ndamam is the only one to recall what happened. She said that while Minato had taken their son, Naruto, to use to seal Kyuubi during its rampage. However, a few hours later, a doctor, whose name she didn't know, came in with her son's corpse. There were a few gasps here and there, and the headmaster's eyes widened. Her grief of losing both her son and husband in one night, combined with the emotional and physical drain she went through during birth, put her into a state of depression that she left the village without a second thought. But how can this be? When I arrived to the sealing area at least an hour after the sealing was done, I found the body of both Minato and Ndamam there along with Naruto, who was just infant. Tashiya glared at the headmaster. Well, then it is clear that someone wanted Ndamam out of the way so Naruto could remain in the village, he said as he glared at Danzo, with only his son and the headmaster catching the sudden glance. Anyway, it matter not, we have come here for Naruto, and once he has recovered we shall be heading back towards Whirlpool, no discussions. This time Danzo stood up, an annoyed look on his face. I'm afraid that isn't possible, we cannot allow you to take young Naruto. Having heard enough of this conversation over the demon brat, one civilian council member spoke up. Excuse me, but why would we want to have the child here anyway? He clearly isn't liked here, so why keep him? He said in a manner that hid his disgust of the child for nothing more than holding the QB. Danzo smirked, now playing his trump card. As I'm sure you all have noticed, Naruto is the son of both Nudamon Uzumaki and Minato Namikaze, thus making him the son of a headmaster. All the civilians rose up and roared in denial. The clan heads just sighed, knowing this was to come, since they already knew that Minato and Nudamon were married. Enough! Hyson yelled, nearly shaking the room and causing all talking to cease. It matters not if he is the son of one of your headmasters. He is an Uzumaki and the rightful heir to the throne of the Whirlpool Nation, seeing how Nudamon Nichan will take the throne after my father, and thus Naruto will follow after, since I have taken the position of Uzukage and thus cannot become daimyo. Furthermore, his mother, Nudamon Uzumaki, is now his rightful guardian and thus is allowed to take him out of this village, unless you wish to bring forth the wrath of both the Whirlpool Nation and Uzushiogakure. That made everyone think carefully of their next words. True, they were known as one of the greatest shinobi village, but that was because their village was founded by Hashirama Senju, the strongest man of his time and perhaps even now. But the creation of the village was thanks to the Uzumaki clan, who helped the Fire Country fund the creation of Hyde Ninja Village. Furthermore, in reality, Uzushio had much more military power due to the Uzumaki clan's powers and seals, along with them being of descendants of the Rikudo Sennin. And backing them up were other powerful clans that were part of the village. Danzo was about to make a remark about the Fire Daimyo, but Tashu tossed Hiruzen a scroll, which had said Daimyo's signature on it. I've already discussed with my good old friend the Fire Daimyo. He was appalled that a member of our clan was being treated so badly and unjust for 3 years and that we were lied to about his survival. He has given us permission to move our forces through his lands, and we will do so if you refuse to give us Naruto-kun. That pretty much stopped any attempts of changing their minds at this point. Even Danzo knew that it would be foolish to go up both the forces of Whirlpool and their own Fire Daimyo, despite his anger of losing the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Once Tashiya saw no one else was going to speak, he continued. In my mind, this village deserves to rot for the betrayal that it has done to my family. However, that would be unfair to my daughter who, despite being lied to, still has many dear friends in this village for who she cares for. So for hers and Minato-kun's sake, I am willing to reopen trading with both Hyde Ninja Village and the Fire Country, under some circumstances. Everyone let out air that they didn't even know that they were holding. There was still hope for them after all. Yes, I think that would be nice. Though I admit that we had no idea that Nudamon-chan was even alive, which I assure you the people responsible will be looked for, I am glad that Hyde Ninja Village and Uzushio can work out a deal and reconnect our lost bonds. That, and I will be glad that Naruto-kun has family to take care of him to atone for my failure of taking care of him. I assume that you wish to discuss opening trade later? Hiruzen asked. Tashio and Hyson nodded. Yes, I would like to go and check on my daughter and my grandson at the hospital, just to make sure they got there okay. Good day. And with that, the Whirlpool Daimyo, the Uzukage and the ANBU all walked out of the council room, making the atmosphere in there less tense than it was at the beginning. Hyde Ninja Village's hospital. At first, Nudamon used speed that would make onlookers believe she was using her husband's Haration, and you would too if you were a mother who was just reunited with her 3-year-old son who was wounded all over his body and barely had any nutrition in him. Also, did I forget to mention that a mother is not the best person to anger, especially if she's an Uzumaki and especially if you anger her by insulting her child? Because that's what happened when Nudamon arrived to the hospital. The receptionist, upon recognizing Naruto, snapped at her, saying that they do not treat demons. It took almost all of Nudamon's escorts to restrain the Whirlpool Princess from brutally mutilating the foolish woman, while Ghost convinced her in a more calmer, yet intimidating, way of getting them a room, along with the fact that the receptionist would be facing the wrath of the Whirlpool Nation for yelling at its princess and her son. So now, after several and may I see painful arguments between Nudamon and some of the hospital staff, which left the latter in need of medical attention themselves, we find ourselves in one of the hospital rooms with Nudamon Uzumaki sitting beside her sleeping son. The Kurokashi were outside the room, guarding the door, the window and the rooftop in order to make sure that nothing could reach the princess or her son. In the room next to them, cute ninja Hyuga was resting in, recovering from her injuries she sustained from trying to help Naruto. 2 Hyuga guards were covering the door along with Inyuza ANBU. Nudamon had insisted that she at least make sure that the girl that helped her son was okay, and would also later like to meet with Hayashi. However, right now Nudamon's thoughts were on her son, who was still asleep, letting out soft, quiet sounds as he rested. Now that she got a better look at him, she could tell that Naruto was an exact replica of his father, Minato Namikaze. From the tan skin to the blue eyes and the spiky blonde hair, Naruto was like a mini version of Nudamon's late husband, minus the whiskers of course. It just made Nudamon's heart break even more that she had left her son, her little baby boy, alone here in Hyde Ninja Village, for 3 years while she didn't even bother to confront the headmaster all those years ago if her son was really dead. Moving slowly and gently, she rubbed her son's cheek, hoping to get rid of the dry tears that Naruto had formed when he was being beaten. However, this simple interaction caused Naruto to stir, his eyelids tightening at the contact of something rubbing against his skin. Slowly Naruto opened his eyes, and the first thing that came into sight was a beautiful older woman with blue eyes, fair skin and long red hair. But her eyes looked sad as she looked at him, like she was in some kind of pain, not physical pain but emotional pain. Suddenly Naruto jerked back in fear, the memory of the mob coming back to him now, as he was now scared that this woman meant to harm him. This just seemed to make the beautiful redhead more concerned as Naruto edged away from her, his eyes wide with panic in them. Naruto could see the fear in her son's eyes, but it was natural for him to be worried of where he is after just waking up from a terrible attack. So slowly Naruto leaned towards her son, speaking in a soft voice. "It's okay, Naruto-kun. I'm not going to hurt you," she said kindly as she tried to hug the scared child. Her voice was very soothing, Naruto noticed as he listened, and the kindness in it almost made him believe her. But he had been subjugated to much cruelty that he was unsure if he could trust this woman. So he weakly said, "Why, you're not going to hurt me?" he squeaked. Naruto shook her head slowly, her arms still out towards her son. "Never, I would never ever hurt you, Naruto-kun. You mean everything to me, my Soichi." Naruto's heart stopped at the last word. This woman, this stranger, had just called him her son. He thought he had misheard her, but something was telling him that she said what he heard her said. "And mommy?" he said softly, his voice full of fear and hope. Naruto could only nod, a smile on her face and tears of joy running down on her cheeks when Naruto finally embraced her, burying his face into her chest, letting out his own sobs of joy as Naruto wrapped her arms around his tiny form. For a moment the room was quiet with the exception of the mother and son's sobbing of finally being reunited after so long. As they hugged, Naruto kept whispering, "I'm sorry, Soichi, I'm sorry for leaving you. I'm so sorry," she said between sobs. The honesty and regret in her voice made Naruto truly believe that she never meant to leave him, and that just made him cry louder as he tightened his grip on her kimono. The reunion lasted for a few more minutes, both people in complete happiness that not a single author could describe in a lifetime. Once both had calmed down, Naruto, while still buried in his mother's hug, looked up at Naruto shyly. "Hey, are you really here to stay?" he asked in a tiny voice. Naruto could only nod, a soft smile on her face as she kissed her son's head. Yes, I'm here now and I won't ever leave you. I'm going to take you home with me so you can meet the rest of your family. Won't that be nice?" Naruto nodded slowly, half listening to his mother, and half being content of being in her warm embrace. A family, for as long he could remember he always wanted a family, people that would always be with him and loved him. And now he had a mom who loved her so much that it hurt. He was in complete and utter bliss. They had no idea how long they stayed like that until they heard the door opening. Stepping inside were Tashio and Hyson. The daimyo smiled at the sight of mother and son reuniting and felt a little bad about ruining their moment. But he still spoke. "I see that you're awake, Naruto-kun," Tashio said softly as he and Hyson walked towards them. Naruto, feeling shy, digged deeper into his mother, not knowing who these two were. Noticing Naruto's wariness, Naruto smiled softly at her son. Soichi, gaining her son's attention. "These are your Gigi and uncle. Don't you want to say hi?" Naruto looked up at his mother for a moment, and then back at the two men. He looked at Tashio, who was the closest. "Gigi?" he whispered. Tashio nodded with a soft smile on his face. "Indeed, I am Naruto-kun. My name is Tashio Uzumaki, and it's nice to see you." Then he had to stop what he was going to say next when Naruto got out of his mom's grip and nearly tackled Tashio with a hug. Sniffling a little into his kimono, Naruto murmured, "Tashio Gigi," as he tightened his grip on his grandfather's kimono while Tashio just smiled softly and rubbed his grandson's back. Hyson rustled his nephew's spiky hair affectionately. Naruto smiled at the fact that he was now surrounded by family when he spotted something coming out of the ground, causing the Naruto to yelp in shock. After hearing his cry, the three adults spun around. In front of them was a regular-sized man wearing a black cloak with a hood covering his face, but you could tell he had green skin. The man took off his hood, revealing his red eyes, and soon got to his knees before the family. "Tashio-sama, forgive my intrusion, but I bring news about the council and Hyde Ninja Village," the man said with a monotone voice. Tashio nodded before looking back at Naruto, who was being calmed down by his mother. "You have nothing to fear, Naruto-kun. This man is a longtime friend of our clan. His name is Yujin, and he was the one who informed us about your survival," he said with a smile. It's true, Yujin had served the Uzumaki clan since the clan's founding. The reason was because the Rakuta Sennin, Zayden, gave him life. However, after his creator's passing, Yujin fell under the command of Rikishi Uzumaki, serving the clan for generations. And thanks to his molecular manipulation, Yujin has served well as a spy, assassin and scout for the clan, the village and the nation. Thanks to his control over molecules, he could switch his organs with new material so that they wouldn't decay or cease working. Naruto looked at his grandfather, then at Yujin and finally at his mother, who gave him a reassuring nod. Naruto turned back at Yujin and waved his hand shyly. In response, Yujin did a bow towards the young Uzumaki. It is a pleasure to finally meet you, Naruto-sama. But back to the subject at hand, I bring news of what I heard the High Ninja Village Council spoke of, as well as other information that I've discovered. Tashiya nodded, and once Ndamam had managed to reassure Naruto that she would be right outside the room, did the three older Uzumaki and Yujin left to discuss what Yujin had found out. Once they were outside and all four of them were out of listening length, Yujin began reporting what he had discovered. I shall first begin with the conditions that Tashiya-sama gave to the council, Yujin said as he pulled out a scroll. They agreed to fire the matron of the orphanage that Naruto-sama was at, as well as bring her before Ndamam-sama for interrogation. He shuddered at the last part, almost feeling sorry for the matron who was going to receive Ndamam's wrath. Then he continued. The council has agreed to remove your clan symbols from their flak jackets to show that they failed to keep the bonds between High Ninja Village and Yazushio due to their abuse to Naruto-sama. And speaking of clan, after getting the report that Tsunade-sama and her assistant Shizen-san have moved to the Whirlpool capital, all belongings including money of the Senju clan shall be taken from the headmaster vault and the Senju compound shall be taken back to Whirlpool with us. It's true, Tsunade, the only known remaining Senju as well as the granddaughter of the Shodame headmaster, Hashirama Senju, had left High Ninja Village a long time ago after the death of her younger brother and lover, taking her lover's niece with her. 3 years ago Tsunade was given a letter from Tashiya that she was welcome to stay with them in Whirlpool since she was family. This helped Tsunade out of her depression and alcoholic state as she realized that she still had family out there. Since then she has been serving as either the personal medic of Tashiya's family or running the hospital at Yazushio, having finally created her idea for a medic nin program. Though since she was still licensed as a High Ninja Village shinobi she couldn't become an official Yuzanin. Currently she, along with Tashiya's wife, Amai Uzumaki, mother of Hyson and Ndamam Uzumaki and grandmother of Naruto and Karen Uzumaki, the latter being Hyson's daughter, A/N. Bet you didn't see that coming. Swanda's assistant Shizen were staying at the Fire Daimyo's palace. The reason is despite feeling ill for some time, Amai was relentless in her desire to come to the Fire Nation to see her grandson, and if she had to, raze High Ninja Village to the ground. True, a mother's wrath is one to be feared, but a grandmother's wrath is even greater, especially if they learn the abuse that their grandchild had. What about the seals around the walls? Have they agreed to let us take them down since they were set up by our clan? Hyson asked. That's where they were less than cooperative to agree, Yujin said. Since the seals serve as a defense against invaders, they would rather have an alternative agreement than just removing the seals. Tashiya rubbed his chin as he turned towards his children. I suppose we could agree to remake the seals into a detection barrier rather than a repelling barrier, Tashiya said. Suddenly Yuza Anbu appeared before all four of them. Forgive my interruption, but Naruto-sama is asking to see you, Ndamam-sama. He's feeling worried that you might have forgotten about him. Ndamam nodded and began heading back towards the room her son was staying in. Before she went in she turned around to Yujin and asked, Were you able to find the people that I requested for? Yujin nodded. Yes, Ndamam-sama, I have located Mikoto Uchiha, Tuchi and Aya Michiraku, your other teammate Hitomi Hyuga, your friend Mabuki Haruno, and your students Yugao Yuzuki, Anko Mitarashi and Kurina Yuhi. Everyone besides Yugao and most likely Mikoto and Hitomi through their husbands will have known of your arrival. If you wish, I shall invite them over for them to see you. Ndamam nodded. Thank you. I think I'll meet with them tomorrow, but if they want to see me now then they can. And with that she went back inside the room where she saw her son hiding underneath the bed sheets, only the top of his head visible. His eyes were scanning the whole entire room nervously, but when they landed on Ndamam they seemed to calm down. Mommy? Naruto asked in a quiet voice. Ndamam nodded with a soft smile before making her way over to her son's side. Did you miss me, Soichi? She asked in a soft tone. Naruto nodded before putting his hands, which Ndamam took as she pulled Naruto into an embrace. I just wanted to spend more time with you, Mommy, Naruto said as he snuggled into Ndamam's chest before closing his eyes, tired after today's events. Ndamam didn't say anything, just rubbed her son's back gently while the room remained in silent bliss. A week later. The week had gone by and the people of High Ninja Village could only say that it was interesting. After reassuring her son for perhaps the 1000th time that he would be coming home with her, Ndamam set out to punish those responsible for her son's terrible life. She first started with the matron of the orphanage that Naruto had stayed in. The damage that was done to the older woman were so bad that it was most likely that her body would never be able to function properly again. Several men, citizens and shinobi, who had abused Naruto would not only be able to sit properly for months but most likely couldn't even be considered men anymore due to the loss of their package. Then came the store owners who either didn't sell Naruto anything or overcharged him for rotten food. Their stores were burned down and they were left on the ground brutally beaten that during the whole ride to the hospital they were crying out in pain. Naturally many people, mostly civilians and a few of the ignorant shinobi, had demanded that something be done about these attacks. But there was nothing that the headmaster could do for several reasons. The first was that Naruto was in her full right to punish these people due to the torment that her son had been given. The second was that she was royalty and arresting the princess of the Whirlpool Nation could have several repercussions, and the last part was that no one had the courage to stand up to an angry mother, especially an angry Uzumaki mother. Speaking of which, an announcement was made the day after Tashio and his family arrived about Naruto's true status. This had multiple reactions from the populace of Hyde Ninja Village. One was that many felt ashamed and stupid for not only breaking their yandame's dying wish but not noticing the resemblance between father and son. There was a small bunch that tried to deny that the demon boy was the son of their greatest hero and the princess of the Whirlpool Nation, but this group decreased drastically after some persuasion from Naruto. Naruto wasn't violent to everyone that she met. In fact, she was quite literally tackled by her good friends Mikoto, Hitomi, Mabuki, and then her 3 students. Naruto had been very surprised that her 3 kunoichi students had progressed so far in these past 3 years. Enko and Kurenai were both ninja training, with the former coming close to Tokubetsu Jonin and working in the torture and interrogation department, while Kurenai was going to become an academy instructor and was the personal caretaker of cute ninja Hyuga. Yugao had already become Jonin and was now an ANBU working under Hiruzen. She was also currently dating Hate Gecko, something that Naruto had seen coming since she would always see Yugao doing sweet things like trying to cure his cough. Current time, Headmaster's office. Currently Tashio and his son Hyson were working out the last bit of the new treaty with Hiruzen. Of course, before that the 2 Uzumaki had a good laugh when they mentioned about using shadow clones for paperwork. Hiruzen was repeatedly slamming his face on his desk for not realizing that it seems that the third man to be called the god of shinobi had never been able to find a way to defeat Akage's greatest enemy. Of course, once that was done they could finally finalize the treaty by signing it. When suddenly there was a huge explosion from the northern gate. The 3 people immediately stood up just as a Hyde Ninja Village and Yuzushio ANBU appeared. Headmaster-sama! Tashio-sama! Hyson-sama! What happened? Hiruzen asked his ANBU. A woman arrived at the gate and without a word to the gate guards and then literally knocked down the steel gates. She is currently going on a rampage within Hyde Ninja Village. Anyone that tries to stop her is brutally knocked to the side. But we managed to spot Tsunade-sama and Shizen-sen accompanying her. The moment he finished that sentence, Tashio let out a loud, exasperated sigh while Hyson was rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. Even the Yuzushio ANBU let out a nervous chuckle. Realizing that all eyes were on them, Tashio sighed again and said, "It seems that Amai-chan lost patience and decided to come to Hyde Ninja Village herself." With that sentence, Hiruzen paled considerably. He was well aware of the Uzumaki infamous anger, and Amai Uzumaki probably was the most notable member of her clan that possessed it. When she went on one of her rampage, there are a few to almost no one who can stop her. It was at this moment that he was glad that he now learned the secret to defeating paperwork, because he was sure that whatever damage that Tashio's wife was about to cause would come back and hit him hard. "Tashio-sama, since this is your wife, could you?" The headmaster hadn't to complete that sentence because Tashio, Hyson, and the Yuzushio ANBU had already departed in a wind shunshin. Hyde Ninja Village Hospital. Guess Mom got tired of waiting. Naruto thought when she heard the explosion and people yelling. However, her focus went back towards her son, who was conversing with a Hyuga around the same age who was desperately trying to remain awake. Cute Ninja was still in her hospital bed since her injuries were severe and she did not possess the healing powers of the Uzumaki and the Kyubi. With them were Cute Ninja's parents, Hayashi and Hitomi Hyuga, along with a baby Hanabi who was fast asleep in Hitomi's arms. Ever since finding out that Cute Ninja tried to save him from the mob, Naruto had been constantly asking to see her and thank her for being one of the few people to help him, besides Tochi and I.M., both preparing to leave Hyde Ninja Village and come to Yuzushio since Hyson gave them the offer of departing Hyde Ninja Village with them. It was a way of thanking them for being one of the few people that cared for Naruto. Of course, they were glad to be given the offer and were starting to become sick and tired of the abuse that the young blonde head had been getting over the years. Besides that, Naruto seemed to be getting along with Cute Ninja, though he was still confused of why she was so red. Oh, when Mom learns of this, she's going to start playing matchmaker. Naruto thought, knowing that her mother was infamous for her matchmaking skills, and she would spoil both Naruto and Karen rotten since they were her grandkids. And just on cue, there was loud noises outside the door, getting higher and higher. Naruto recognized them as her mother's and the 2 Hyuga guards, and she decided to head out there before the guard received any unnecessary injuries. As she reached the door, her father's voice came into play, and with that the shouting died down greatly. Then Naruto opened the door, and the first person to enter her and Naruto's view was Amai Uzumaki, Naruto's mother and Naruto's grandmother. She was almost like an older version of Naruto, with long dark red hair. Like Tashio, she had a few wrinkles, but only a few for people to think she was younger than her actual age. Her eyes were blue and she wore a blue kimono with the Uzumaki clan symbol on it. She also had blue earrings dangling from her ears as well. Naruto Mom! There you are! Amai said, turning her attention from her husband. I've been looking everywhere for you. Naruto Mom just sighed at her mother's energetic personality. Of course, I guess I'm not one to talk, she thought to herself before looking down at her son, who was still looking at Amai with a curious face. Ne Soichi, this is your Bachan. The word Bachan woke up Naruto and he suddenly sprinted towards Amai, tackling her with such force that he could have brought her down if it were not for their difference in size. Bachan! He squealed with delight of having met another family member. Amai smiled at her grandson as she lifted Naruto up to eye level. So this is my little grandson? Oh, and those whiskers marks make you look so cute and cuddly, I just want to hug you. She squealed as she pulled Naruto into a happy embracing hug, allowing her grandson to wrap his arms around her neck. The rest of the family smiled at this before Naruto Mom noticed someone was missing. Akasen, where is Tsunade-sensei? Naruto Mom asked. Amai looked up at her daughter and blinked, realizing said woman wasn't around. Oh, I didn't notice she had left. I was in such a hurry to meet Naruto-kun that I wasn't aware of my surrounding. Everyone just sweat dropped at the response. She never changes, Tashiya thought as he looked at his wife. Then he spoke. Anyway, we've just finished with the treaty, and once Tsunade and my men have collected all of the Senju and Uzumaki belongings, we will leave. Naruto Mom? Hitomi asked as she stepped out of her daughter's room. When she noticed both the daimyo and his wife, she let out an eep and bowed. Tashiya-sama! Amai-sama! It is an honor to see you again. Immediately recognizing the girl, Amai smiled. Hitomi-chan! It's good to see you again too. You've grown since I last saw you, she said as she handed her grandson back to Naruto Mom and gave a motherly hug to the Hyuga matriarch. Their position actually put Amai in a spot where she saw both Hayashi, who was holding Hanabi and sitting besides cute Ninja, who was still in her bed. Hayashi-kun, is that you? Amai's family watched as she went into the room and began conversing with the Hyuga family, and was soon joined by Naruto Mom and Naruto, the latter wanting to spend some time with his grandmother. That just left Tashiya and Hyson, the latter looking at his father. So how long do you suppose it will take until Kasan starts going into matchmaker mode when she sees Naruto and cute Ninja? Tashiya rubbed his temples, almost forgetting his wife was infamous with that. Knowing her probably soon if she's in the same room as those two. And as if right on cue they heard a, "Ah, these two make such a cute pair," from Amai, causing both Uzumaki males to sweat drop. Tashiya sighed while Hyson turned around and walked away, saying, I'll let Yujin-sen know to have the men prepare to leave. If we don't, then Kasan will be hell-bent of having those two getting married now than later. Agreed, Tashiya said, but at the same time an idea began to worm through his head, something that made him think that his wife's personality might be infectious. Naruto-kun, please don't eat so fast. You'll make yourself sick like that. Naruto Mom scolded her son as he was devouring every single piece of food in sight. While she was doing that, the rest of her family, including Tsunade and Shizen, were either discussing about some other topics or watching in amusement at the interaction between mother and son. It had been 4 days since they left Hyde Ninja Village, 3 days walking to the port by land and a day at sea heading towards the Whirlpool Nation. During that time, Naruto was able to interact with the shinobi and samurai that had accompanied them and was already having a positive effect on them. Apparently, finding out you had family that loved you so much that it was suffocating had that effect on a 3-year-old boy. And combined with Naruto's usually positive personality just made it impossible for the soldiers and servants not to be fond of the young prince. He also possessed the selfless and kind characteristics that all Uzumaki have, such as when he did not want to force himself on the servants. Everyone had a good feeling that Naruto would grow into a fine young man. Then there was the meeting between Tsunade and Naruto. At first, Naruto was a little bit shy of meeting a new person since in the past his usual meetings didn't really go so well. But thanks to some encouragement from his mother, Naruto managed to greet Tsunade, with the first thing he said to her was, "My mommy is prettier than you." This was due to Naruto's belief that his mother was like a goddess compared to other women. This caused several reactions from the people gathered. Shizen and Amai giggled at the comment, while Tashiya smirked and Hyson rolled his eyes. Naruto Mom made to scold her son for saying something rude to Tsunade, but said woman shook it off with a laugh, saying that it was understandable since she had thought the same thing with her mother and grandmother. During the ride from Hyde Ninja Village to the port where they would take the private ship of the Whirlpool Daimyo, Naruto had bombarded his mother, uncle and grandparents with questions, like what was Whirlpool like? Were there ninja there? How big was their clan? Did they have any kind of cool abilities like the clans in Hyde Ninja Village? And why did they all have red hair, and if he could have red hair too? Despite all the constant babbling from Naruto, his family were only more than glad to answer his questions since he would most likely needed to be educated in both ninja arts, politics and society. Back to the present moment, as mother was trying to slow down her son's eating, a samurai approached Tashiya, who was sitting beside Tsunade bending down so only the daimyo could hear, whispered, "My lord, the guest has awoken." Tashio's eyes narrowed, knowing who he was referring to. Nodding, he made a signal to Tsunade, seeing how the guest had a history with the Slug Princess. Informing the rest of their family that they would be back shortly, the two made to the bottom of the ship, where several samurai and Yuzanines were stationed at different areas of a long hallway. They made way for the Uzumaki and Senju/Uzumaki until they finally reached a cell with bars and core energy suppression seals placed all around the cell. Inside, on his legs and waking up, was a tall man wearing a red haori on top of a green shirt and mesh armor. He had long white hair that was tied into a ponytail with a metal headgear that had the kanji of oil on it. Going down from his eyes to the bottom of his face were 2 red marks and a wart on the left side of his nose. This man was none other than Jiraiya, another of the High Ninja Village Sannin, the Toad Sage and the world-known super pervert, along with being the late Yondaime headmaster's sensei and Naruto's godfather. Originally, after learning that Jiraiya had not been there in the beginning of Naruto's life, Naruto wanted to hunt him down and beat him to a point that would make the beating Tsunade had given her teammate when he peeked on her in the hot springs look more like a school brawl. However, Tashio advised it would be better to head home first in order to get Naruto comfortable in his new surrounding and that Hiruzen would contact him about the current events. But fate would have it that Jiraiya would be the one to find them. Flashback 2 days after leaving High Ninja Village. Amai-chan dear, don't you think we should continue heading towards home rather than making a pit stop? Tashio asked as said woman was holding her grandson's hand. Their group had stopped at Yugikure, the former shinobi village of the hot water country, in order to rest since not all of those who accompanied them were shinobi, and that Amai was dead set of making up her lack of gifts for Naruto's first 3 birthdays since she wasn't patient enough to wait until they got home. Nonsense, Amai said as she smiled down at Naruto, who returned it with his own foxy grin. There's a festival in the village today and I will not wait any longer until I make up for the 3 birthdays of my grandson's life that I missed. Besides, everyone could use a break and this is the best place to do it. Tashio looked around and saw that Nerdmom was talking with Tsunade and Shizen, mentioning something about hot springs. Some of the others seemed to need to relax a little. With all that, Tashio sighed. Very well, but only for a few hours. I don't want any assassins to come at us while we're still in fire country, especially Danzo's route. I have a feeling that old mummy wasn't comfortable with us taking Naruto-chan. Amai rolled her eyes before looking down at Naruto. Come Naruto-chan, let's see what kind of prizes they have here. Naruto smiled. Hi Bie-chan. Then he turned towards his mother and shouted. Bye mommy! I'm going with Bie-chan, he said while waving as he, Amai and several guards walked into the village. Nudamam smiled and waved back, then turned around and headed out with some of the other women towards the hot springs. With all them women gone, Tashio turned towards his son. So what will you be doing, Hyson? Tashio asked. Hyson shrugged. I'll stay with the convoy to make sure that no one gets any ideas. What about you? Tashio rubbed his chin, thinking of his options. I guess I'll find a souvenir for my nation symbols collection. Never got one from this village before, so might as well do it while I'm here. And with that he walked off, with several samurai and ninjas accompanying him. Back with Naruto, the boy had already spent 15 minutes with his grandmother, and was already having the time of his life. Back in High Ninja Village he had never gotten the chance of going to any of the festivals because the villagers would always yell or throw him out, so he was doing so many things at once that you would almost think there was 10 of him. By now he had played multiple games and won several prizes, had a lollipop in his free hand that was almost halfway finished and wore a funny red top hat on his head. Around his neck were 2 man-made necklaces with the Uzumaki symbol on them, one for him and the other for his mother. They were made by a blacksmith from Takumi Village, the weapon forging village. But the favorite part of it all was that he was enjoying it with someone else, a family member no less. Amai had no problem catching up with her grandson, seeing how he hadn't had so much fun in such a long time, and was more than glad to spend as much money as possible for him. The pair was looking around when something caught Naruto's attention, causing him to let go of his grandma's hand and walk over towards the source of his focus. It was a toy stand with several large stuffed toys hanging on the wall while several more were lined up on the counter for display. They were about the same size or shorter than Naruto was, but what caught the boy's attention was a cute orange fox kit that had a plushy tail. He had a look of longing in his eyes as he stared at the toy in awe. Amai, having walked beside Naruto, looked at the toy and smiled, figuring out what her grandson wanted. Looking back down, she asked, "Would you like to get that, Naruto-chan?" Naruto merely nodded his head shyly, eyes still on the toy. Amai took Naruto's hand while the boy threw out his finished lollipop. As they walked up to the stand, the owner, an elderly woman wearing a simple brown kimono. Besides her were 2 younger people, a boy who appeared in his teens and had short black hair and wore a short blue kimono, while the other was a girl with long brown hair and had a green kimono. The older woman noticed Amai and Naruto walking up to their stand and smiled at them. "Hello there, do you see something that you like?" she asked them, but it was more directed at Naruto. Naruto didn't say anything, just continued to stare at the stuffed fox. It was Amai who responded. "Yes, my grandson is interested in that toy right there." she said, pointing at said toy. The owner looked up and smiled and soon had the boy, her grandson as it turned out, grabbed the toy and handed it to her sister so she could dust it off a bit since it was hanging up there all day and collected a bit of dirt on it. She was going to wrap it up next, but Naruto just wanted it how it was. So the teen handed the stuffed fox to the blonde head while Amai paid for it. "What do you say, Naruto-chan?" Amai asked her grandson. Naruto, who had already begun hugging the toy with joy, looked up at the owner. "Thank you," he said in a cheerful voice. The older woman just smiled back and wished them a good day. As they were walking, Naruto looked up at his grandmother. "Ba-chan, can I go and show mommy what I got?" he asked in a cute voice. Amai smiled. "I don't see why not." She turned towards one of their guards. "Do you happen to know where Naruto-chan went to?" she asked in a kind voice. Amai Uzumaki, like all members of their clans, was raised to not act in a superior manner towards others because of their status. They treated everyone, servants, allies, friends and even enemies, with respect and equality. This is what made the Uzumaki clan so well loved and respected by other clans and villages. Even their enemies had to admit that their non-arrogant attitude was something to be commended. The samurai bowed. "I believe Naruto-sama, Tsunade-sama and Shizen-san mentioned something about going to the hot springs." Before anyone could react, Naruto made a dash towards said location, excited to show his mother what he got. He laughed cheerfully as any other child his age would as his grandmother and guards tried to catch up with Naruto-mom. The buxom blonde known as Tsunade Senju let out a sigh of content as she sank deeper into the hot, refreshing water, while Naruto-mom and Shizen were already relaxing. Around them were several other women, some visiting the festival, others passing by or from the village, all of them enjoying the nice relaxing water that they were buried in. A few of them, however, were whispering to each other as they looked at the legendary Sannin and the princess of the Whirlpool Nation. This, however, did not go unnoticed by the two said women and the older one's apprentice, but they ignored it as they were used to such things. "You know, no matter how much I think about it, Yubikyu's hot springs are on a whole different level than anywhere else," Naruto-mom murmured as she stretched her legs underwater. "And their casinos," Tsunade said, which was soon followed by a familiar glint in her eyes. She looked at Naruto-mom. "Speaking of which..." Naruto-mom sighed and shook her head. "No, sensei, we're not going to any casinos. The only reason we stopped here is because mom wanted to begin spoiling Naruto-kun before we got home. You'll have to talk to her if you want to go and gamble." She smirked inside when she saw her sensei make a face in defeat. Despite being the strongest kunoichi and the greatest medical nin in the world, not even Tsunade was brave enough to go up against Amai Uzumaki. Hell, she doubt even her grandfather was brave enough to go against an Uzumaki woman, like his wife for example. "I'm still surprised that Headmaster-sama allowed Naruto-kun to be abused like that," Shizen commented. She and her master had read through Naruto's medical files, which was so large that it needed its own shelf just to fit it all. While they were disgusted about how villagers treated an innocent boy, it was worse when Naruto-mom read them. Tsunade literally had to use her full strength in order to keep the redhead from raising the entire village to the ground. Swanda sighed. "Sensei was always the type of guy that had too much faith in the people of the village. Though while I'm sure that he did his best to protect the kid, but with those two old buzzards of teammates of his, along with that bastard Danzo, it probably wasn't easy." Before they could go any deeper into the topic, everyone was silent when they heard someone scream, "Mommy!" with Naruto. Naruto was running around the area of the hot spring, all of his prizes being watched by a samurai. He was upset that the receptionist wouldn't let him go into the ladies' side since men weren't allowed in there, but he didn't argue because his grandmother, who had caught up with him, said that the receptionist was only doing her job and following the rules. He still didn't get it, he just wanted to show his mommy what he won. What was wrong with that? Anyhow, that is how Naruto ended up exploring the outside area of the facility, since Amai didn't want to go any further because she didn't want bad people to get him. His mind began to drift off to their eventual arrival to his new home in Whirlpool. His mommy had said that the Uzumaki clan were the highest nobility since they founded both the country and its shinobi village. In fact, Naruto's grandfather was the current daimyo while Naruto-mom was next in line, followed by Naruto. When Naruto asked where they would be staying, Naruto-mom replied in the daimyo's palace, which was supposedly the most beautiful and protective place in the world. While he had never seen a daimyo's palace, he remembered hearing from the old man, Hiruzen, that they were very big places with fancy stuff hanging everywhere. But he was more focused on if he would make any friends there or if people would like him. He didn't want people to be nice to him just because he was a prince according to his mommy. He wanted them to like him for who he was. However, his musings were cut off when he heard giggling from somewhere close. From what he could tell, it was coming somewhere from behind the hot springs, and his grandmother never said that he couldn't go there. So with that in mind, he decided to investigate. What he found was the oddest thing he had ever seen in his short life. It was a man that Naruto was for sure about. He had long white spiky hair that was tied into a long ponytail. On his head was a forehead protector with horns and had the kanji for oil written on it. He wore a red haori on top of a short green kimono that matched his pants. On his feet were red geta, Japanese sandals, and finally a large scroll was strapped to his back. But what confused Naruto was that the man was peeking through the wooden wall of the hot springs, a light blush on his face along with an odd-looking smile and finally a notepad and pencil in his hands. Seeing how the man had not noticed his presence yet, Naruto decided to try and figure out what he was looking at. Fortunately, he managed to find a hole in the wall that was about his height. What he saw was an entire room filled with women, naked. What's so funny about seeing naked ladies? Naruto innocently thought to himself as he looked back and forth at the old man and then the naked women. But then his eyes caught onto three familiar figures. It was his mother, Tsunade and Shizen, and they were also naked. Still not understanding why the man was looking at the women while they were naked, Naruto however did not like that he was spying on his mother. So with that in mind, Naruto stomped on over and poked the white-haired man in the leg. "Hey mister, stop spying on them, it's rude," he said in a serious tone for a 3-year-old. However, he got no response from the man who just kept on giggling and taking notes. Getting annoyed, Naruto kicked the man in the leg. "Hey mister, didn't you hear me? Stop looking at them. It's rude." The only response he got this time, however, was something wet and slimy wrapping around his waist and pulling him back. Startled, Naruto looked back and saw that he was in the clutches of a giant toad's mouth. "Quiet, Gaki, can't you see I'm doing my research?" the man said without looking at Naruto. The sudden realization of being in the grip of a giant animal that could possibly hurt him caused painful memories of the past to enter Naruto's mind. Soon the young Uzumaki began tearing up as he struggled to get free. But when that came to no avail, he did the only thing he could at the time. So with tears now pouring down his face, he yelled with all his might, "Mommy!" The response was instant. A portion of the wall in front of Naruto was suddenly destroyed, shocking only the toad and the man since Naruto was still bawling his eyes out. As the dust settled, the form of a towel-covered Nudamam Uzumaki with her signature nine-tailed red hair floating in the air could be seen, followed by Tsunade and Shizen and several other women clad in towels. The redhead had a frantic look on her face as she scanned for her son. When her eyes locked onto the toad that had her son wrapped around its tongue, she yelled, "Naruto Kyuen!" And she followed it up with a powerful kick to the toad's face, sending it flying while releasing its grip on Naruto, who was promptly caught by his mother, and thus began crying into her shoulder. Tsunade, who recognized the toad as a summoning, had a tick mark forming on her face when she finally spotted the white-haired man, aka her ex-teammate Jiraiya, who had now gone pale as a ghost when he realized that not only had he been caught but that Tsunade had been one of the women he had been spying on. "Jiraiya, you Yarobaka! How dare you spy on us and harm an innocent child?" And before Jiraiya could even get a glance at the son and mother, he was pounced by both Tsunade and the rest of the women, screaming in terror as their righteous female fury struck his body. Flashback and current time. The outcome of it all was obvious. Once the women had finished beating the perverted sage into a pulp, Nudamam continued the assault after learning that not only had Jiraiya scared Naruto with his summons, but also because Naruto was trying to stop the pervert from spying on them. Of course, this only earned Jiraiya more of a beating from the women again, since they were now angry that someone would try and harm an innocent child. Fortunately, the guards had finally arrived, apologizing profusely to Nudamam for not realizing Naruto had wandered off. Then upon Nudamam's order, they arrested the now shell of the Toad Sage to bring back to Whirlpool for trial of both spying on the Princess of Whirlpool, harming her son, as well as discarding his promise to take care of the boy over the past 3 years. That is where we find ourselves now, with Tashio and Tsunade waiting for Jiraiya to wake up. "Oh Kami, my head," Jiraiya moaned as he got up. "I feel like I just got trampled by several large toads." "I'm surprised that you recovered so fast, Jiraiya," Tashio said, catching the Toad Sage's attention. "A woman's wrath is not something to be trifled with." "Tashio-sama." Then he looked at the person besides the daimyo. "Tsunade-heim." "What? How?" "Well, currently you're being detained on Tashio-sama's personal boat heading towards Whirlpool Country after you got your rear handed to you, again," Tsunade said as she glared at her former teammate, causing Jiraiya to shrink at the glare. "When we get there, you'll be facing trial for your crimes against the Uzumaki clan. Pray that we don't leave the final decision in Nudamam-chan's hands," Tashio added. Jiraiya's eyes widened at the name of his late student's wife. "Wait, Nudamam is alive?" he yelled as he grabbed onto the bars of his cell. "How come she didn't stay with Naruto?" His answer was him getting lightly shocked from the seals attached to the bar, activated by Tashio. "Do not even think about changing the subject, Jiraiya," Tashio growled as he leaked out some killing intent. "In fact, where have you been? Did you even know how much Naruto-kun had suffered over the past 3 years? Nudamam-chan nearly went on a rampage upon reading his medical files. You had better pray that either she or Mai-chan don't show them to him for Hyde Ninja Village's sake." Jiraiya and Tsunade both shuddered at who he was referring to. The person he meant was none other than Tashi's father Sadahiko Uzumaki, the most powerful man in existence. His powers were greater than that of Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha, and some have said that he might be the reincarnation of the Rakuta Sennin, or at the very least his equal. The Uzumaki clan had settled in the Whirlpool Nation long before the birth of Hashirama and Madara, living in isolation and away from the wars of the other clans. But it was Sadahiko, who had become clan leader at 10 and daimyo by the age of 15. He also was the one who ended their isolationism and formed a truce with their cousin clan the Senju, as well as inviting the 14 other clans onto their land and making Uzushio that it is today. The Uzumaki male was not only a master of Fuin spirit art, but also can spirit art too. But what made him so feared were his skills in Onmyotan, Yin-Yang release, the same power that the Hamura Otsutsuki possessed, as he had the Rinnegan just like his brother. Though the sage's Rinnegan was more akin to the Sharingan, while Hamura's was more akin to the Byakugan. Using Onmyotan, he could create anything from nearby, such as the ground, water, tree, the air, and even his own body, similar how Hashirama used his Mokutan. Along with that, he could also use Yin release and Yang release, the two core energy natures that created Yin-Yang release. And even to back that up, Sadahiko, the Shodame Yuzukage, along with the clan heads of Uzushio's other clans at the time, were praised as the most powerful shinobis in Uzushio's history. Furthermore, he was very, very loyal to his clan and friends. In fact, there was a story that once he single-handedly destroyed 2 clans for trying to kill his younger sister, Mito Uzumaki. They didn't even last a week when he found them, and the only survivors were the civilian members of the clan as well as children, since Sadahiko didn't like killing the defenseless or young. If Sadahiko learned what happened to Naruto, his own great-grandson, then Hyde Ninja Village would be razed into the ground. Finally regaining his composure, Jiraiya gave a defiant glare at the Whirlpool Daimyo. Look, I understand that you're angry, and yes, I did know that Naruto was having a hard life, but you have to understand that I couldn't take him with me. My spy network is important for Hyde Ninja Village to stay ahead of the other villages. I did send him money once a month so he could live on his own. That just made Tashi glare at the Toad Sage more. If you knew he was suffering, you should have contacted me. The Uzumaki clan would never allow one of our own to be treated so horribly. But instead, our own spies found out about Naruto's existence 3 months ago, when you could have just told us 3 years ago. What's your excuse for that? Jiraiya cringed at that act. It was Minato's wish that Naruto would grow up to become a shinobi for Hyde Ninja Village. How could I deny the dying wish of my prize pupil? Furthermore, the other 4 great villages have at least 2 Jinchuriki. Allowing you to take Naruto would have destroyed the balance between the 5 great nations. His response was another shock of electricity from the security seals, sending Jiraiya to land on his butt. The way you say it, Jiraiya, is like you see Naruto-kun only as a weapon. In fact, if I had to guess, I would have to say that you thought the same of my daughter and aunt when they held the Kyuubi in them. The mention of her grandmother being referred as a weapon caused Tsunade to glare at her teammate. I will leave you for now, Jiraiya. And if you make any more excuses like Sixth Headmaster did, then Nerdamon will do the same to you that she did to him. Tashia finally added, remembering when Nerdamon had cornered the copy Nin one day, demanding to know why he wasn't there for Naruto. When Sixth Headmaster gave his reason, which was he was grieving so much after the loss of Minato, Nerdamon had literally punched him so hard in the face that he might have lost all of his teeth, and after that a serious scolding of learning to deal with the pain and taking responsibility, because she also grieved for the loss of her husband and child, but that didn't stop her from going on with her life. With that, Tashio and Tsunade walked out, leaving Jiraiya to his own musings. Several hours later. Mommy, look! It's land! Naruto shouted with glee as he stood at the front of the ship, pointing ahead at the first land he had seen since sailing. True enough, the land of Whirlpool was coming into sight. From their view, the people on the ship could see several tall mountains on the island, the sandy beach just a few miles ahead, and before that multiple jagged rocks with seals on them. But what stood out the most were the large whirlpools that spun around in the ocean. Yes, Soichi, that's Whirlpool country, Nerdamon said gently as she grabbed a jumpy Naruto so he wouldn't accidentally trip. That's home. Naruto's eyes widened as he looked back at the upcoming island with a look now of longing in his eyes. But that quickly changed when he asked, But mommy, how will we get past the big swirly waterholes? Naruto asked, not knowing that they were whirlpools. Nerdamon just giggled before responding. Those Naruto-kun are whirlpools, which is why the nation is called Land of the Whirlpools. And don't worry, they are man-made by the first female clan head, Oto Uzumaki. The whirlpools make a path for anyone of Uzumaki blood so that way we can enter while they protect the island as well. And if other people come, then we have sealing barriers that alert us on land, allowing barrier teams to control the whirlpools on our own. Naruto made an ooh sound, amazed of how powerful their clan was before looking out in front of him again. Sure enough, the whirlpools began to part in order to make a path for the boat to go on. Even some of the soldiers and servants, who had seen this hundreds of times, were still in awe at how the whirlpools moved upon the command of the Uzumaki clan. But to Naruto it was something much more, something that he always dreamed of, home. A home, with a family, people who love him and he loves them back as well. There was one thing that Naruto knew for certain: he couldn't wait to start his new life. Big, that was the only word Naruto could find in his limited vocabulary to describe the palace. As he held onto his mother's hand, his eyes were taking in every detail of his new home. The 5 large towers surrounding the 6th, and larger, tower in the center all had large version of the clan's symbols around them, followed by other strange markings that made the towers look unique. Surrounding the towers were multiple smaller buildings with a few connected via bridges. And around all of that was a large pearl white wall with multiple people standing on them, which his mother had said that they were the guards. But the amazing thing was that the entire palace was on an island within the nation with several whirlpools in the water surrounding it. The only thing connecting the mini-island to the rest of the country was a long road of dirt that Naruto and the rest of the convoy was currently riding on. However, Naruto noticed that there were some people missing, including his uncle. "Mommy, where did Uncle Hyson, Auntie Tsunade, and Shizen-ichan go?" Naruto asked as he looked at the red-haired woman. Nerdamom smiled as she pulled her son onto her lap, which made Naruto unconsciously snuggle into her. "Tsunade-sensei and Shizen went back to Yazushio with Uncle Hyson because they had to check the hospital. Uncle Hyson is bringing his family here. I'm sure your cousin Karen will be very excited to meet you, Soichi, since you two are about the same age." She didn't mention that Hyson had sent word to Hiruzen that Jiraiya had been arrested during their return to Whirlpool and would be held for trial for spying on the Whirlpool princess and assaulting her son. Furthermore, there might be a chance of Sadahiko making a visit to Hyde Ninja Village because of these events and of Naruto's treatment in Hyde Ninja Village. Truthfully, the wrath of the Red God was not a pretty sight, but Sadahiko would eventually find out because anything related to the Uzumaki clan was to be brought to his attention. Naruto giggled happily at the idea of finally meeting another family member his age along with the rest of the clan. In fact, he was so engrossed with speaking to his mother that he hadn't realized that they had passed the palace gate until Nerdamom lifted him off her lap. "Well, Soichi, we're here. Your new home." At the mention of home, Naruto excitedly bounced out of the carriage, taking his first steps onto the palace floor. He looked up and gasped at the reception waiting for them. Before him were hundreds of samurais, servants, officials, and even a few ninjas standing in perfect lines with banners high in the air. Not being used to so many people, Naruto began to feel shy and hid behind his mother, who had already gotten out of the carriage. Nerdamon just smiled at this as her mother and father joined them. "Well, what do you think, Naruto-kun?" Tashiya asked his grandson. Naruto peeked his head out of his mother's kimono, looking at all the people staring back at him, looks of awe in their eyes. "Big," he whispered as his mother finally picked him up into her arms. Soon the group began walking towards the palace as the gathered people made way for the return of their lord, lady, princess, and the lost son. While they were doing that, their escorts were unloading the supplies brought with them, including the Ichiraku stuff. Time seemed to go by Naruto as his eyes took in every detail of the palace, both outside and inside, marveling at the beauty it showed. He didn't even notice that a servant had walked up towards the group and said to the elder Uzumaki members, "Tashiya-sama, Amai-sama, yours along with Nerdamom-sama and Naruto-sama are requested in the clan meeting room. Sadahiko-sama has been waiting for your return and would like to discuss about what transpired at Hyde Ninja Village," the servant said. Nerdamom was surprised by this as she held tightly to Naruto's hand so he wouldn't wander off. "Gigi is here? I thought we would meet him at the Tenzin." The Tenzin, Heaven Mountain, was a large, at least over 500 feet, single tower in the more isolated parts of the country. It was created when the Uzumaki clan settled on the island and isolated in order for privacy. The Tenzin's sole purpose was to act as a library, lab, archive, and to some a retirement home. Sadahiko had retired there for the rest of his days, in order to continue his hobby of knowledge since he could no longer travel around the world. He rarely comes out of the tower these days unless it is important. He only had a few other people with him since he did like to have company inside the large tower, though not a lot. "I should have expected father to come here rather than wait for us at the Tenzin," Tashiya exclaimed as he and the others began heading towards the meeting room. "He always wants to know of new things concerning the clan and never has the patience to wait," he added, earning some agreements from the others. A few minutes later the group had arrived to the clan meeting room, which was a lone room with a wide table with several chairs surrounding it. Hanging from the walls were the clan symbols along with the heads of each of the 9 bijou. And there was a man at the other end of the table. The man was busy drinking a large cup of sake. He appeared around the same age as Hiruzen but with a mix of gray and red spiky hair with a ponytail going down his back. There was also a short red beard on his chin, which matched his red eyebrows. He wore a simple black kimono underneath a dark blue haori that he wore like a cape. The haori had the clan symbol on its back too. Leaning against the table was a staff with the clan symbol on the top of it. Also, unlike Hiruzen, he had less wrinkles on his face but a scar that went across his forehead and connected with another scar that went over his left eye, though he could still use said eye. When the man was done drinking his sake, he looked towards the new arrivals, revealing his dark blue eyes. "Yo," the man finally said. "Tashiya, what in Kami's name took you so long? I practically slept here waiting for you to come back." Anoka-chan is probably going to give me an earful when I get back. I even drank all the sake I was saving for you lot too. Tashio scratched the back of his head sheepishly while Amai pinched her nose, both of them annoyed at the laid-back attitude of the most powerful man in the world. Naruto merely giggled while Naruto stared quizzically at the old man. Mommy, who is that? Naruto asked Naruto. Hearing Naruto's voice, Sadahiko looked down until he spotted the blonde-haired boy. With a simple gesture of his finger, Naruto was suddenly lifted into the air, causing the young boy to let out a yelp as he realized his feet were no longer on the ground. Calm down, child, I just want to meet you, Sadahiko said as the other adults watched in amusement as Naruto slowly floated towards the elder Uzumaki while the others watched with amusement. A few seconds later, Naruto was softly placed on the table right before Sadahiko Uzumaki. Said boy, still stunned about what happened, that he didn't notice Sadahiko studying him until the older Uzumaki began moving his finger towards him. So you're my great-grandson, Naruto, huh? Sadahiko said as he poked Naruto lightly on the left cheek. That seemed to annoy Naruto, and in response he bopped Sadahiko on the nose. Naruto-kun! Naruto scolded. Don't hit your Hijiji, she said. However, Sadahiko merely chuckled at Naruto. It wasn't a loud chuckle or manically, it was a simple, kind chuckle full of amusement. In fact, Naruto couldn't help but giggle in response, especially when Sadahiko gave Naruto a foxy grin and rustled his hair. I like you, kid, you definitely got the spirit of the Uzumaki, Sadahiko said as he rustled Naruto's hair a little bit more. Naruto nodded but then pouted. Hijiji, why does everyone in my family have red hair? He asked innocently. As Sadahiko and Naruto were discussing about topic of red and hair, Naruto was conversing with her parents. I'm glad to see Naruto-kun is getting along so well with Gigi, Naruto whispered to her parents. Tashio nodded as he took a brief glance at the two spiky hair people. Indeed. I remember that Aunt Mito told me what father was like when he was a child. If I have to make a guess, I think Naruto-kun would be like a younger version of him. Yes, and Naruto seems to be very comfortable with him despite meeting Sadahiko-sama just a few seconds ago, Amai said. Naruto was about to comment on that when Sadahiko said something that caught their attentions. Oh, by the way, Naruto-kun, I got you gift, Sadahiko said and smirked when he saw the stars in Naruto's eyes. I'm guessing you would like it now. Naruto nodded excitedly. Sadahiko digged through his person and soon pulled out a book with a circle of 12 rings on the cover. Each circle had the kanji of each zodiac written in them. This is a very special book of mine, Naruto-kun, Sadahiko explained as he handed the book to the boy. Naruto had a look of awe on his face as he stared at the cover. And when you read the book, amazing things happen when you do, the elder Uzumaki finished. Naruto's look of awe turned into a sad frown, something that Sadahiko noticed. But Hijiji, I don't know how to read, Naruto said with a sniff at the end. Naruto, Tashio and Amai had looks of shock on their faces while Sadahiko's was blank. Finally the elder Uzumaki asked. What do you mean, Naruto-kun, weren't you taught how to read while in Hyde Ninja Village? Sadahiko asked. He was confused because all kids Naruto's age should know how to read and he had not been told of Naruto's treatment at Hyde Ninja Village. Naruto shook his head sadly, and you could see tears beginning to form. No, the mean lady at the orphanage would always yell at me whenever I came for story time or lessons. When I wouldn't leave, she would hit me really hard in the face and call me a filthy demon and that demons should stay dumb. He finished, and then tears began to slowly go down his face. Sadahiko's head was down, his hair blocking his face as he took in what Naruto just said. To everyone but Naruto, the elder let out a very demonic aura that threatened to engulf the whole room, the palace even. Finally, after a few seconds of silence, Sadahiko looked up at his great-grandson with a kind smile. Well, Naruto-kun, just because you don't know how to read doesn't mean you can't learn. I'm sure your mom would be happy to teach you how to read. And if you like, I or others can help you too. Would you like that? Naruto raised his head and let out a weak smile in response, earning a wide smile from Sadahiko, though the adults knew it was fake, hiding the growing anger behind it. Great, now I'm sure you're tired, Naruto-kun, so I'll let your mother take you to your new room. Then he made a gesture to Naruto, who quickly came up to her son and picked her son, allowing him to snuggle into her shoulder. What do you say, Naruto-kun? Naruto asked sweetly. Naruto, with the book still in his hands, looked at Sadahiko and said in a soft voice. Thank you, Hijiji. Sadahiko smiled again and watched as mother and son walked out of the room, leaving Sadahiko and the grandparents behind. The moment the door closed, however, Sadahiko looked directly at his son and daughter-in-law, the two stiffening at the cold glare the elder Uzumaki was giving them. You two mind telling me what the hell happened in Hyde Ninja Village? Tashio and Amai both looked at each other and gulped. One thing was for certain, the fate of Hyde Ninja Village hanged in the balance of those two as they began explaining Naruto's life in Hyde Ninja Village to the most powerful person alive. Hyde Ninja Village. Life in Hyde Ninja Village had changed rapidly in just a few days. News about Naruto's lineage struck a major dent in the village's morale. Not only had they been abusing the son of their greatest hero since the Shodaime headmaster, but also a member of the Uzumaki clan's noble family. Many wealth and greedy merchant families realized that they lost their chance to reach royalty by setting up an engagement marriage between Naruto and their daughters. The shinobi forces took it the hardest. Many of them had trouble looking at themselves in the mirror. Because every time they did, they remembered how they caused Naruto so much pain, whether directly or indirectly, and then get even more depressed that they harmed an innocent boy and only child of the Yondaime headmaster. Another thing was that they felt naked without the symbol on their vests, the symbol of the Uzumaki clan, cousin clan of the Senju. All in all, the mood in Hyde Ninja Village had gone down a few degrees, none of them thinking that this couldn't get any worse. What? They were wrong. Back in the council room, the Shinobi Council, Civilian Council, elders and the headmaster were discussing about the new changes to Hyde Ninja Village done by the Uzumaki clan, as well as some things that Hiruzen had discovered amongst the papers from civilians. Since he learned the secret of defeating paperwork, the Sandaime discovered that many civilian council members were trying to gain more power and chewed them down about the treason they were committing. They were now listening to Danzo about increasing their military now with the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki gone when a ninja training came in with a letter with the Uzumaki clan's symbol. The letter that Hiruzen read is what made him yell just now. Sandaime-sama, what is it? What happened? Kohara asked her former teammate. Hiruzen put the letter down and rubbed his nose, mumbling to himself. Finally he calmed down and looked at the rest of the council. I just received word from the Uzukage that Jiraiya of the Sannin was arrested a few days ago and taken into Whirlpool custody. There were a lot of gasps from the other council members. Finally Shiba asked, what are the charges? Hiruzen reread the letter before responding. The first is neglecting his duties as Naruto-kun's godfather. The second was that harming said boy with one of his summons. And the last one inch. He sighed again when he read it again. Was that he was caught spying on the women's hot spring while Nudamamchan was in said area, thus meaning he was violating the Whirlpool's princess's personal space. At that everyone just groaned loudly or slammed their heads repeatedly on the table. They just couldn't believe of how bad everything has been going in just a few days. They just narrowly avoided the wrath of the powerful Uzumaki clan, and now they might have to face it again. Will this affect us in any way? Choza asked. Hiruzen rubbed his nose. I'm not entirely sure. All I can say is that it's most likely that Jiraiya will probably be banned from the Whirlpool Nation. The chances of him being executed are slim, but I'll send a letter to Tashiya-sama and apologize for my student's behavior. Now I'll have to see what the rest of the letter says. Everyone raised an eyebrow, wondering why the headmaster's voice slowed down as he read the rest of the letter. Then his skin began to pale and his left eye began to twitch violently. Hiruzen? Hamaru asked his former teammate, trying to figure out what was wrong with him. After a few seconds Hiruzen managed to find his voice, but his face was still pale. They said there is a chance that we might get a visit from Sadahiko Uzumaki. The elders and the clan heads paled at the name while the rest were confused, not knowing the meaning behind the name, which is why one of the civilian council members asked. Who is this Sadahiko? He doesn't sound like much. I'm sure someone of your caliber can deal with him, Headmaster-sama. The headmaster along with the elders and clan heads looked at the man like he lost his mind. Finally Hiruzen decided to educate them. I doubt I could even make Sadahiko sweat. He's known as the Red God, the Destroyer, Red Sage and the Titan's Wrath. His powers are limitless. In fact, many have said that he's either the reincarnation of the Rikudo Sennin, or his equal. Not even Hashirama-sensei or Madara Uchiha could beat him, even working together. Those words made everyone stare at the headmaster in disbelief. They looked at the three elders and when they got nods of confirmation made them pale. Finally Tsum asked. Wait, you said that Shodaime-sama and Madara Uchiha couldn't beat this man. How old is he? Hiruzen was searching for his pipe. He knew he was going to need a good smoke to explain all of this. From what sensei told me, Sadahiko is Hashirama's 9 years older than him, also his brother-in-law and his, Madara, and Mito-sensei, meaning he's like 100 years old. He put his pipe in his mouth before continuing. Also there is a rumor that he was the one who taught Hashirama how to utilize his Mokutan and even discovered the secrets of the Sharingan. My sensei even told me that Sadahiko-sama once took down 2 entire clans when they tried to kill his little sister, Mito-sama. Along with Fu in spirit art, he is skilled in Ken spirit art, Tai spirit art, and Nin spirit art, specifically Omniton, and the way he uses it is on a wide scale. If they weren't feeling scared before, the council certainly was scared now if this man was as strong as the headmaster says he is. Isn't there something we can do? Asked a nervous civilian council member, hoping for some kind of way to fight off this possible threat. Before Hiruzen could respond, he was interrupted by a loud Hiruzen Sarutobi! In Hyde Ninja Village's plaza. Very few ninjas can fly, despite it being seen as an ability that would be extremely useful, very few ninjas can really do it. The only known people who can accomplish such a feat are the current Sachikage, Inoki, and his sensei the night-aimed Sachikage, Mu. But the man to beat them to it was none other than Sadahiko Uzumaki, who could move at light speed when he was angry, and right now he was very angry. That is why he arrived to Hyde Ninja Village so quickly. Every word that his son and his wife said when explaining Naruto's treatment at Hyde Ninja Village, the room they were in was slowly starting to crack and break as the elder Uzumaki's temper rose. Finally, the moment they were done, he bolted out of the room, the palace and the nation faster than you could say oh crap. So now Sadahiko was in the center of a crater he made upon landing in Hyde Ninja Village's plaza, throwing people off their feet and sending several stands backwards. Shinobi had already begun to gather around him even before he yelled out the Sandaime headmaster's name, but none of them dared to try and approach the Uzumaki, who was literally radiating golden core energy from his body, even making it visible. A few shinobi, either brave or stupid, however, charged towards him, weapons raised. But the old Uzumaki merely swung his arms, releasing a whirlwind of golden core energy, sending those fools and others flying backwards. As he continued heading towards the mansion, a Nara clan member used his shadow possession technique to try and stop Sadahiko's movements. Keyword try, as his shadow soon broke from Sadahiko's, shocking the Nara greatly. "You're 100 years too early to hold me down, brat!" Sadahiko yelled as he slammed his fists against the wind, like he hit something. And when he did, cracks formed in the air and then sent a shockwave/earthquake that caused the Nara member, more people and the buildings in its way flying backwards. He's a monster! A ninja training, having just arrived with a new group of shinobi, said upon witnessing Sadahiko's action. Hearing the ninja's comment, Sadahiko disappeared and slammed the ninja training into the ground, causing a crater with them as the epicenter. The impact also sent the shinobi around them to lose their balance and fall on their butts. The ninja training who made the comment, and current felt multiple bones snapping from the pressure of Sadahiko's foot on his chest, saw that the old Uzumaki's eyes were now glowing gold that was similar to the golden core energy around him. "You bastards laid a hand on this monster's family, making them weep for 3 years. Sadahiko replied in a deep, dark demonic voice. "Don't even think for a second that laws or gods will be able to protect you." The ninja training as well as various other shinobi literally shit themselves upon hearing that declaration, as well as his killing intent leaking out. Sadahiko then picked up the ninja training and threw him violently into some other shinobi. The old Uzumaki was about to continue his trek when he found himself facing Hiruzen Sarutobi, the clan heads and a large detachment of ANBU. Behind them were more shinobi as well as a few civilians, including the civilian council. Despite this large number of strong shinobi, the group clearly showed signs of intimidation from the power Sadahiko was still leaking out. Hiruzen decided to speak, and hoped he could calm this godlike man down. "Greetings, Sadahiko-sama, it's in dash." "Cut the crap, monkey gaki!" Sadahiko interrupted the headmaster. "You know why I'm here, and you know that you brats don't stand a rat's ass against me." He finished the sentence. He released some killing intent, making a lot of people very, very nervous. "Now I'll be merciful and give you 5 minutes to give me a reason for not pounding this damn village to the ground." Hiruzen swallowed deeply before he spoke, saying each word carefully. "I already know why you're here, because of how your great-grandson was treated." He cringed as Sadahiko released some more core energy. The output caused glass about 3 miles to shatter due to the pressure, along with nearby buildings to crack a little. "But I swear blaming the entire village for only what a few did is not something you would do, nor would Naruto-chan or Naruto-kun appreciate you taking away lives for something that happened in the past," Hiruzen said hastily, doing his best to prevent less damage to be done to the village. He knew for a fact that being the third person called the god of shinobi, not even he nor perhaps all of the ninjas of Hyde Ninja Village could stand a chance against an angry Sadahiko Uzumaki. Sadahiko just stared at Hiruzen before responding. "You're full of BS, monkey boy!" he roared, sending some of the clan heads and the other shinobi back flying. "Despite saying that you did your best for Naruto-kun, you allowed your damn age to take over your duties as leader and honoring your successor's final wish. Do you have any idea how much Naruto-chan wept for the past 3 years? Or how much Naruto-kun suffered because of your incompetence?" Sadahiko asked but kept going, not waiting for an answer. "Furthermore, you are an idiot for literally announcing to the whole village of Naruto-kun's status. Don't you know a Jinchuriki's identity is supposed to be kept a secret? I mean, how do you suppose Midori-chan or Naruto-chan managed to live here without facing constant scorn from these idiots?" Then he glared at the 3 elders and some of the civilians. "And you people are even bigger idiots. No, you're even worse than idiots. Hell, calling you guys bugs wouldn't be enough to title you guys as. It would be an insult to bugs everywhere. You 3-inch," he said, looking at Koharu, Hamaru and Danzo. "Keep thinking military-like and stuff, that you don't think about a person's feelings. How the hell are you guys Tobirama students if you can't even understand something like that?" He roared, unleashing a blast of core energy that sent buildings and people, noticeable the civilian council members, flying into the air and landing somewhere else in the village. Then he glared specifically at Danzo. And don't think I haven't figured out what you wanted to do with my great-grandson mummy boy. This comment called Danzo to narrow his eye at Sadahiko. And as for you lot, he said, turning to the civilian council members and the people they represent as well as Shinobi. What the hell is wrong with you? He roared, causing some of the weak-willed to faint from the killer intent, which included some Jonins and A and Bus since this was Sadahiko we were talking about. You ninjas should have at least an idea of how sealing works. Furthermore, you idiots can't see over your own grief that you're abusing an innocent child for something that he had no control over, as well as the fact that he lost his father and nearly his mother on the night he was born. And to top it all off, some of you people have kids and yet you scorn, yell and sometimes beat a child about the same age. After that ranting, a lot of people had the decency to lower their heads in shame. As much as they wanted to deny it, they knew that Sadahiko was saying the absolute truth. Sadahiko turned his attention back to Hiruzen, who looked like he aged a few years. I want to destroy this village, or at least leave you lot so hurt it will take 10 generations for you to recover. Sadahiko said calmly but still in a serious tone. But for now and for the sake of Mito-chan, I'll let the guilt and shame you people are feeling be punishment enough for what you have done, but… He paused as the golden core energy began to appear once again. If any of you ever hurt my family, my friends, or anyone I hold dear… He slammed his fist down into the ground. The result was a large crack coming from the spot towards an abandoned building, which caused said building to explode. I will bring my wrath upon you all. Taking their gaping faces in silence as a confirmation, Sadahiko prepared to take his leave. Now if you excuse me, I need to be heading home. I have a celebration to attend as well as a trial for that perverted student of your Hiruzen. And with that, the most powerful man since the Rakuta Sannin took off into the air, leaving Hyde Ninja Village behind with buildings ruined and people in pain, both physically and emotionally.